Good morning, friends. I hope you are all doing well. It's the end of May, so today, before the rain starts, I want to bring you on a full tour of the garden here. But before we head outside, I'd like to make some coffee and spice drop cookies, and we can enjoy the cookies later today with either coffee or tea. These cookies were developed in the 1940s, and they are one of my favorites. I can put a link to the printable recipe in the description below if you'd like to try them. I need flour, which I'm going to weigh out. The recipe calls for sifted flour, but I think modern flour is pretty much already sifted. Put this away. To the flour, I need to add baking soda, salt, ground nutmeg. I'm going to use fresh nutmeg. We need quite a bit of this nutmeg. I don't know about you, but the scent of freshly ground nutmeg makes me feel very calm. Then we need some ground cinnamon. Give these dry ingredients a whisk. And we can set the dry ingredients aside for a moment. I'm going to make this dough in my stand mixer, which is outfitted with a paddle attachment, but you could definitely make these cookies with electric handheld beaters or even just with a stout wooden spoon. We need butter. This is room temperature butter, and it is a very good quality butter because butter is one of the key ingredients in this recipe. Then I need brown sugar, either light or dark. And 2 room temperature eggs. Then I need to beat this mixture until it turns light and fluffy. That will take about 4 minutes. The butter mixture is looking terrific. It's very fluffy. So now I'm going to stir in at low speed some coffee. This is cold coffee from this morning's brew. Then we can add the flour mixture. So these cookies are really quite simple to make. I want to give this a good stir with my spatula just to make sure all of the flour is incorporated. This dough needs to chill for at least 1 hour in the refrigerator. So I'm going to do that now, and then I want to show you the flowers that Lisette brought to me this morning. Look at these gorgeous bearded irises. These are from Lisette's own garden. I'm going to bring some clippers with me when we go outside for our garden tour and look for some greens that can accompany these irises. Let me clean up here, and then we can head outside. Here's the layout of the house and property as viewed from above. The property only looks large because of the way I designed the landscape. Beside the front porch are these hostas that I planted many, many years ago. They've grown quite large. And then this is the New York fern. So it's native to my area. And you've seen me use this fern and the hosta leaves in flower arrangements. very convenient to have them right beside my front door. And in my backyard, I have a very large boxwood garden. Now, this whole area was an asphalt parking lot when we bought the house over 20 years ago. And I had all of that asphalt dug up, and then I bought just enough boxwood to create these designs here, geometric designs. And then I took cuttings from the boxwood and created this entire hedge. I'll try to include a clip of this garden right after the asphalt was dug up and I had started the boxwood and added some roses. Speaking of which, all of these are David Austin roses, and they are budded up but not yet in bloom. Now, the boxwood has tons of new growth on it, so it is due for a haircut, but that is a job that I hire out. I give myself that little luxury because I don't think I would be very handy with a hedge trimmer. There are a lot of things I can do, but hedge trimming is not one of them. This pair of weeping crabapple trees was actually a wedding gift that we received more than 20 years ago. And my, how they have grown. The variety is called red jade, and they make beautiful pinkish flowers in late April or early May. Red jade crabapple blooms in late April. The flowers start out red and then fade to white. And of course, the robins love to eat the little crab apples in the fall. This boxwood garden is surrounded by 190 yews. They were little tiny plants when I bought them, and now they are probably twice as tall as I am. And of course, the boxwood and the yews are great for flower arrangements. And they look wonderful in all seasons, even when they are covered with snow. Fountains that you see in this garden, I found online. I think they were made in New Mexico, and I had them shipped here for a very low cost. And I don't have them turned on right now because, well, the pumps need some maintenance. I have a number of these tutors in the garden, and several of them have clematis climbing them. And the clematis is almost but not quite ready to bloom. I'll show you one that is in bloom when we go to the herb garden. This is a very hilly property, so we are heading north now up this brick path. Well, it starts out as brick. And then here I created a little border for pachysandra and some daffodils. Daffodils are no longer in bloom. And the border is beneath this ancient, it's probably 200 years old, silverleaf maple. There are a number of old trees on this property. The maple, this oak over here. But any trees you see that are under 100 years old were planted by me, including the hemlock over here and over here. And then we will walk beneath a trio of white pine that I planted. So I really had a blank slate to work with when we bought this house. And I went hog wild with landscaping it. And I really didn't know what I was doing. So if the garden looks nice to you, it was entirely by accident. We have an in-ground swimming pool over here, and to hide the swimming pool, I planted small arborvitae, which are now, I don't know, maybe 20, maybe 25 feet tall. Someone gave me seedlings of these forest pansy redbud trees, so I planted them maybe 15, maybe 16 years ago. And they are absolutely gorgeous when they are in bloom. And then there are dwarf lilacs over here. Behind these lilacs is a staircase, which I call the serpentine garden. And I will tell you how I came to design this garden when we visit it later. Just past the arborvitae here is a shrub called Thuja Green Giant. I ordered these from a mail order nursery, and they came as just tiny rooted cuttings, but I planted them, and oh my, how they grew. 3 to 5 feet every year. We are at the top of the hill now. The herb garden down here is something we will visit later. You might remember that earlier I said that I propagated a lot of boxwood, and that's how I created that boxwood hedge. I had so many cuttings to work with and so many plants that I put some of them up here to frame the kitchen garden. And the kitchen garden was created, I think, in 2006. No, it was 2008. And we're going to step inside right now. Now, if you've been following all of our vlogs, you already know all about this garden. But let me give you an update on the plants. So these are San Marzano tomatoes that are growing, well, they will grow up this cattle panel trellis. I did the same arrangement last year, and it was so much fun to walk under the trellis covered with tomato vines and to just pick the fruit very easily. I didn't have to bend down. I have not finished planting this first bed over here, but I did put in a supertunia. It has very pretty yellow flowers. And then some of the snapdragons that you and I planted from seed together. And then I have the rest of the bed to fill up. But I do have some Brussels sprouts that you and I planted together. I think it was last week. Some over here, and then some in this bed as well. I have a cattle panel trellis here. So when the Brussels sprouts grow tall, I will be able to brace them against the fence. Otherwise, Brussels sprouts tend to fall over. And this bed also is not fully planted out just yet, but I have the bells of Ireland that you and I started together from seed over here, a random snapdragon or 3, and a lovely little lavender calibrachoa over here, which I hope will cascade over the side of the bed. And here are 50 of the snapdragons that you and I started from seed. They are thriving. I pinched them out early on, so they are starting to branch, as you can see over here and over here. So I think these will be very tall, very bushy snapdragons, which is exactly what I want. And in these two narrow beds that flank this cattle panel trellis, had to think of what it's called, I have sweet peas planted from seed, and the soil in these beds is not great. I didn't amend it at all. I foolishly did not amend it. So I added shredded leaves to this bed to lock in all of the moisture from the recent rains that we've had. And these sweet peas seem very happy indeed. And I will need to add shredded leaves to this bed as well. This bed contains asparagus, but it has never performed very well for me, so I just let it go to seed. Well, it forms this beautiful ferny foliage, and I use it for flower arrangements mostly. Another bed, beautiful lovage, which you and I have used together in many recipes. Lovage has a magnificent celery scent. It's like celery on steroids. It grows like crazy, and the stems are hollow, so you can actually use them as drinking straws for a Bloody Mary. Here's the garlic that you and I planted out last autumn. It is thriving, and it appears to be forming its garlic scapes. Garlic scapes are the seed pods of hardneck garlic, and they are terrific for pesto. And then we have two beds of the onions that you and I started together from seed. These are storage onions, red, burgundy, and white. I don't remember what the white variety is called. And I had potatoes in this bed last year, and apparently I didn't harvest them all because whatever remained in the bed has sprouted. And I'm not sure if I should pull them up or leave them. But I think potatoes and onions can grow happily together. We will see. This little flower over here, which you and I planted together, I think it was last week, is called Blue My Mind. Blue as in B-L-U-E. And it is a beautiful blue at that. And this other onion and potato bed has another calibrachoa, this one in a gorgeous, rather hot color. Not sure if it's hot pink or hot magenta, but it is hot, all right, and very beautiful. And since we are up here and I have my clippers handy, I'm going to prune some of the lower stems from these San Marzanos. Tomatoes are less susceptible to disease if you prune off the lower stems. And this is another Supertunia over here. I really love the color. It's similar to the irises that Lizette brought to me this morning, color-wise. And now we can head to the serpentine garden. So I designed the serpentine garden on the steepest slope on the property. It was a real troublesome spot because every summer the lawn mowing person would get his lawnmower stuck. I mean, it was a big riding lawnmower. He would get stuck on that hill, and his boss would have to come with a truck and a chain and tow him out. So I thought, this can't happen. So I decided to be creative and create a winding or serpentine garden with a very gentle staircase. So each step has a very shallow rise. I worked with one person to put this staircase in, and I told him that I wanted to be able to climb this path when I'm 80 years old. So far, so good. This is Weigela over here. The variety is called Wine and Roses. It's a beautiful, beautiful shade of reddish pink. So the Weigela buds start out with this deep pink or almost purple color, and then they open to, let's find one that you can see easily. They open to this faded pink. And here's the hedge of dwarf lilacs. They're mostly out of bloom, but there are enough fresh blooms on these shrubs to keep this garden fragrant. And I love the retaining walls we made because it gives you a chance to sit down just about anywhere in this garden. I even have a cement bench over here. The lilacs are underplanted with Vinca minor, which you may know as periwinkle. In early spring, it produces gorgeous blue or periwinkle blue flowers. And then I have a number of dwarf crabapple trees over here. Now these trees were so small that I was able to bring them home in my little tiny car many years ago. I planted them, really gave them no care whatsoever, and they just flourished. I was very lucky in that respect. More hemlock. My goal here was to create a lot of shade because it is a very sunny south-facing property. And it's, well, you've seen me come up here and either have coffee in the morning or tea in the afternoon or a cocktail in the late afternoon. This is a Thuja green giant over here. I didn't know where else to plant it, so I planted it here. It is ginormous now, and we have had to prune off the lower branches just so we could walk down the steps of this garden. And here is witch hazel, which I think I've shown you in the past. It blooms reliably at the end of January and the beginning of February, no matter how much snow and ice is on the ground. It's a great shrub. Next to and at the base of the serpentine garden, I created a little formal blueberry patch. It's blueberries, plus I have holly growing in here. Holly and blueberries both love acidic soil. So when I created this little garden, I added a lot of peat moss to the soil. And the blueberries are in flower, and the flowers are forming the little blueberries. And again, I was able to surround this garden with boxwood because I took cuttings. If you have just one boxwood plant, you can propagate it and create your own hedge. I love boxwood because it's evergreen. Looks gorgeous, as I said, in all seasons. And now we can walk this way towards the herb garden. I made this herb garden for a grand total of $100 many years ago. So it was an unused area that's located behind the music room wing and the dining room wing and the old north wing over here. Now the first step was to put up pressure treated posts and wire mesh fencing. And then I created gates out of some old oak slats that I found in the house. The oak slats were from the 19th century. And then I put in 4 6 feet by 4 feet raised beds in the garden. And I bought many, many, many bags of small grade gravel. Maybe it's, I don't think it's pea gravel, but it's a small aggregate. And I used that to pave the pathways between the beds. And that gravel is definitely due for a refresh because I can see the landscape fabric underneath it. But that is a job for another day. Now in this bed, I have a good-sized clump of chive, and as you can see, it is beginning to bloom. I love the color of the blossoms. And not only do I use the chives, but I use the blossoms too. I put them in champagne vinegar, and they make chive vinegar, which is absolutely delicious in salads. And at the far end of the bed, I have collard greens and butter lettuce over here. Romaine. I have a lot of romaine. Well, you've seen me clip this from the garden. And then I have this red leaf lettuce here. I think it's called red oak leaf lettuce. Very delicious. Well, all of these lettuces are wonderful. They're very crisp and fresh. And then cilantro over here, which you may know as coriander. And then the radishes that you and I planted from seed, I think it was 1 week ago, and they are flourishing. And I have about 100 carrots in this bed that I planted from seed. And the carrots have at last germinated, and you can see them over here. The variety, I think, is called Bolero. It's an orange carrot. It's not particularly tapered. The whole carrot is very fat, so it's very easy to peel and absolutely marvelous to eat. I can highly recommend Bolero carrots. I planted this variety last year, and it produced an abundant harvest. And this is a celery that you and I planted together from seed. It is growing at a snail's pace. So I may yank it out and replace it with store-bought celery seedlings of a more respectable size. Bed number 3 has ace bell peppers and larkspur that you and I planted together from seed. And I already see new growth on the larkspur, and that makes me very happy. I also have some random coriander in this bed because I grew it here last year and it's seeded, or it's self-seeded. And I have some lavender that you and I grew together from seed. The lavender is dotted here and there in the garden. And if you brush or touch a leaf, oh, the scent is just heaven. Let me know if you love the scent of lavender. I surely do. And at the end of this bed are, I believe, mixed Benary or Benary zinnias. They grow very tall. And of course, the zinnias will be great for cutting. And in the 4th bed over here, I have Savoy cabbage, which is doing very, very well. Basil that you and I grew together from seed and that we transplanted out, I think 2 weeks ago or maybe 3 weeks ago. I also have the parsley that you and I grew together from seed. Over here, it is growing beautifully. I think it likes the cooler temperatures. And then more random coriander over here, and a few more of the Benary zinnias. And this is the sage and the rosemary that you and I potted up last week. I already see new growth on the sage. As you might recall, I added some of the sage leaves to the stock in which we cooked Instant Pot baby back ribs last week. Sage has a nice smoky flavor, so it contributed its aroma to the ribs. They were delicious. And behind me is the clematis that I mentioned earlier. And I love this shade. It's like a denim blue. The sun is trying to peek through, so it's sunglass time. Now, this urn was one of many that I bought at auction, and you and I painted it this charcoal gray color. And I put this gorgeous Calibrachoa in here. I love the shade. It's a very pale red. And attached to the music room wall are a couple of brackets from which I hung some supertunias. And here again, I love this shade. I'm not even sure how to describe this color. Sort of a cherry color. A cherry color. Supertunias are great because they bloom and bloom all summer, and you do not have to deadhead them. We are heading for a garden shed because I want to show you one rose that is beginning to bloom. This is a 19th century rose called, I think it's pronounced Zephyrin Droen or Drofin. I'll try to put a little text of the name in this clip. The stems are mercifully thornless, so it's a very easy rose to work with. The flowers are pink and they are super fragrant. I love the perfume. And now let's head back to the front of the house because I want to snip some ferns and maybe some hosta leaves to go with those beautiful irises that Lisette brought. Let's head back into the house and arrange the flowers, and then we can bake off those cookies. Put down some old landscaping fabric for our flower arrangement. It's the vase. I do want to add some floral preservative to this vase. I need more water. And a spoon. Lisette, thank you so much for these irises.
Oh, of course. I know they're your favorite color.
They are. Lisette knows I am partial to cool colors. So I believe these, oh yes, these are bearded irises. And what did I do with my clippers now? Here they are. I'm going to start with some hosta leaves. Now, one question I'm asked frequently is, what is the size of the garden? The garden is about 4 acres, so it's not all that large, and only half of that is actually landscape. So let's say 2 acres are what we walked today. Another question I'm frequently asked is, can I show the irrigation system that I have in the herb garden and the kitchen garden? And I would love to show, I actually did show it to you many years ago when it was put in, but in truth, I don't think it's the best system, so I'm planning to replace it this year. And if and when that happens, I will be sure to include you. I want to add some of the upright yew from the boxwood garden, just to beef up this arrangement. I will be right back. Actually, I don't need the yew because I still have some of this ruscus left over from the last flower arrangement we made. This is Italian ruscus. Ooh, I think this will look very nice in here. So I bought the ruscus at the local flower shop. I bought a lot of it because it keeps for a very long time. And by putting a lot of greens in here, the irises will stay where I want them to stay. Lizette, these irises are just exquisite. You have no idea how happy I am to have them. I always say that no one brings me flowers, so I buy them for myself. But today, I was proven wrong. Someone brought me flowers. Oh, I think this works. I just need some New York fern. Ooh, yes, you like?
Yeah.
Yes. Ferns always seem to lend a graceful air to flower arrangements. And I think this arrangement should go next to one of the pianos in the music room. Let's see what it looks like there. I just have one more fern to add. I love this. And just like that, it is cookie time. Now my oven has preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius. And I have a cookie scoop here. I'm going to form these cookies into teaspoon-size balls. And we need to space these about 2 inches apart. The cookies do spread a little. So I have, I think, 18 cookies formed on this baking tray. And then I'm going to do another tray with the remaining dough, which I can flash freeze and bake for later. I'm going to make these cookies a little larger. Well, this recipe makes a lot of cookies, and that's not a bad thing. Going to go ahead and bake off this first batch. 8 to 10 minutes in the preheated oven. And I'm going to flash freeze these trays of cookies. And when they are solidly frozen, I can put them in a Ziploc bag and bake them off whenever the mood for coffee and spice drop cookies occurs, which will be very soon. These cookies smell just heavenly. Now, I need to let these cool for a bit, and while we wait for that to happen, I think I'll brew up some tea. I have my cookies, my milk, my teacups and saucers, and I think for these cookies, this black chai tea will go very well. This is tea that I buy from Tierra Farm. And I've already warmed my teapot by pouring hot water in it and then pouring that water off. And I think we should enjoy our tea and cookies in the music room somewhere near those flowers. Chai tea is a very strong tea, so I do like to add a splash of milk to it. Oh yes, this is a wonderful tea. Cookie time. And these are mighty exquisite cookies. I really love the mixture of nutmeg and cinnamon and coffee. Just incredible. The cookies are soft in the middle and slightly crisp on the bottom. They're truly wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today as we took a walk in the garden. And if you enjoy garden tours, please let me know in a comment below. And I will try to do a garden tour at least once each month during the growing season. The garden is constantly changing as the summer progresses. And I hope you will give these marvelous cookies a try. I think Lizette and I will probably finish this entire plate in about 5 minutes. And I've left my apron on because I have more cooking to do, which will be in the next video. And until then, please treat yourself very, very well. And I will see you very soon, my friends. Bye for now.